where we will be recording and posting this meeting and the discussion to our website for anyone who can't attend this evening. If you do have questions, we encourage you to post those into the chat. We will pause at different intervals during the presentation to respond to questions. And we will also have an opportunity to unmute and ask questions of myself or any of our administrators or panelists this evening at the end of the presentation. With that, again, just a reminder tonight, this is our 5th LCAP meeting to propose a budget for next school year. The last 2 meetings were dedicated specifically to instructional services and educational services and the goals and actions and metrics related to those. Previous to that, we've provided budget updates and initial budget discussions in November and January. This is the 5th and final planned meeting for our LCAP this school year. After this evening's meeting, our LCAP will be fleshed out into a written plan, and it'll be shared with the county. And we'll go through an approval process with our school board in June, the first reading on June 5th, and the second reading on June 26th, where it'll be approved and adopted. So we do appreciate feedback. If there's questions or concerns, you can always reach out to anyone. With that, I'm going to get started with our presentation and pull up our slides. Please bear with me while I get that set up. One other thing I'd like to do is I'm going to post to our chat the link to our LCAP website where the slides are available. You can view those slides or the translation of those slides as well. Oh, just a second. There we go. Okay. So with that, we will get started. Our first slide here that I want to point out is a slide we look at every LCAP meeting. These numbers have remained unchanged since we pulled them in October. The reason for that is these numbers are a snapshot called on Census Day, our Seabeds Day. And this is these are the numbers that generate the supplemental funds, and they establish a percentage of our overall ADA that we get in supplemental funding. You can see the trend. The last couple of years has been able to sustain our numbers. We've campaigned very hard to have students participate in our free and reduced meal program. You see that is a big, the majority of our students that generate these funds. Right now, every student receives a free meal regardless of a free and reduced meal application. But that application, if families identify as free and reduced, does provide additional funding through LCAP and Title I funds. So it's important that we do continue to complete those applications, and we will continue to campaign with our families to do that for next school year. The other significant subgroup here is our English learners, and that population has been increasing in the last couple of years. You see from last year to this year has stayed consistent. But we have a lot of newcomer students, immigration to this part of the of California from a lot of international places, and so we're supporting those learners a lot of new languages, including Ukrainian and Russian, as well as Armenian and Spanish the last couple of years. These students are called unduplicated because they only count once in the total. So if you're trying to do the math of calculating across the bottom, it doesn't add up in that total unduplicated count because we may have students who are identified as both a free and reduced meal program participant as well as an English learner, for an example. But these students generate these funds, and these funds are primarily spent on these students to increase and improve services. That's what we're here to discuss this evening. So this next slide goes through our budget. Originally, our first interim budget, we now have a second interim to report on this slide, and our original budgeted amounts. You can see that the majority of our spending is spent in goal 1, our instructional services goal, to the tune of about 9.7 million. In our educational services, we spend approximately 2.4 million. And then our personnel services, goal 3, is about 131,000 currently. There is a goal 4, our facilities goal, but we do not spend any supplemental dollars towards that specific goal. Our total expenditures at second interim is 12,314,541. It's approximately 100,000 over what we had budgeted. At the same time, our revenues have increased from what we originally anticipated by about $100,000 this school year. You can also see our carryover has stayed stagnant across the year. These were carryover from funds from last year. So our projected carryover at the end of this school year going into next year's plan at this current moment is $337,726. That is a significant decrease in carryover that we had from the previous year of $1,190,000. So taking that into consideration when we look at our projections and anticipating a budget for next school year, this slide really does a good job of representing how our carryover has been spent down the last couple of years. These dollars were accumulated during the COVID-19 pandemic, in part due to some services that we were not able to provide in distance learning, but also the ability to use COVID dollars or one-time funding that had to be spent in a certain timeline. We prioritized spending those dollars and putting our supplemental LCAP dollars in reserve. So we built up a large reserve of carryover during that time frame, and in subsequent years, we've been spending that down by about $1 million each year. So you see our projected revenues this year and next. We're keeping those consistent, as well as our projected expenditures with our carryover that we just identified of $337,000. So what this tells us is if we have that carryover, we have about the same revenues that we had this year. And if we did not make any changes to our LCAP plan, we would be spending in excess of about $500,000. This is not new information. This is information that we've been sharing since November, but we're using current second interim numbers based on where we are in the budget at this point in the year and what our projections are as far as how we anticipate expenditures and revenues to be at the end of this school year. So just putting a straightforward amount, making it clear, we as a district are looking to cut at least $500,000 from our LCAP for next school year, and looking at all of our current actions and how they support our goals and our unduplicated students to determine where we can reduce spending and where we need to adjust based on our population and our current needs. I'm going to pause right now because we've made it through a couple of slides. This is an important slide as far as our planning for next year to look at the questions in the chat. We do have a participant in person, so thanks for joining us. If you have a question, you can step to the microphone so that our online participants can hear as well. So why such a difference from carryover from last year? Again, these carryover dollars have been spent down, so we aren't generating new dollars in carryover. We only generate new yearly revenues we've been spending in excess of our revenues the last couple of years. And so that's what's reduced our carryover year after year to about $1 million each year. Thanks. And I believe that was answered in the chat, so just wanted to make sure everyone was aware. So now gets to the core discussion of planning for next school year. And looking at our current action items and where we feel like we can make reductions to reduce by 500,000, as well as look at items that need to be shifted or modified so that we can make investments in services that are needed elsewhere. So I'm going to go through these one by one. Summer school is to reduce that funding by about $30,000 for next school year. Currently, that funding is at 130,000, so we'd reduce 30. If you haven't been familiar with our LCAP last year, we reduced our summer school spending significantly to direct students and families to online programs that are viable for our students. So we're now able to reduce that just a little more into next year. The next item is a contract with Hanover Research Group. This is Hanover Research Group does our school satisfaction survey as well as our mental health survey. Specifically, this 60,000 is a one-time investment to bring data back on our care centers specifically, to look at the services they provide, look at the pros and cons of that service, and evaluate what direction as a district we should be going with providing that or similar counseling services to our students going forward. So we anticipate that information coming to our school board soon, but that is a one-time expenditure that we do not need to include in our plan going next year. Next one is a DEI consultant for $47,000. This was actually a consultant we had in previous years. This year, we did not renew a consultant agreement and have been doing this work in-house. So this is naturally an expenditure that can fall off the plan for next year, as we've had a lot of success with the DEI work led by our own administrative staff. Oops, let me go back. I didn't mean to do that. Our next item is elementary curriculum specialists. This is 2 FTE at 2 specific school sites. The reason for this reduction is we're looking to reinvest those dollars into assistant principal positions for those 2 sites. So we're planning to replace the curriculum specialists within a dedicated assistant principal at those 2 large elementary schools. Specifically, that would be Jefferson and Miller Elementaries. The next item is elementary intervention specialists. This is 11 FTE, currently 10 full-time employees. There's 1 vacancy in this count at one of our sites. And this is an item that was originally part of the discussion in November, January, as a ticket item to really address the shortfall of $500,000 in next year's plan. That conversation has evolved to identify the needs of our elementary schools in supporting student behaviors. And you will see on our next slide how we have found a mechanism to reinvest some of these dollars into new services for our students. And you can see the other items here contribute towards the reduction of our $500,000. Next item is elementary response to intervention, our RTI program at elementary. This is a small portion of that budget. Right now in LCAP for this year, that item is approximately $538,000, I believe. This year was budgeted for an increase in salary, benefits, as well as hours in that program. We are projecting at this point that we will not need that full a dollar amount to continue to provide the same services we have in previous years. So we're anticipating we can reduce that item by 75,000 and still continue to maintain our RTI programs as they are. Our next item is interpretation services or translators. And this is looking at that budget item again. We have increased that item year after year. We've seen sort of a plateau in some of those services and the need. So we're looking to sort of return back to a base level funding that we've had previously. DEI collaboration time for school leads. We made a reduction to that from last year's plan to this year, and we are planning to reduce that dollar amount by about $10,000. Just if you're not familiar with this item, we have DEI leads at our school sites. And this is funding for them to meet and collaborate around their DEI work. There's still funding for this, just a reduction in the amount that we're earmarking for that. The last item on this slide is our ELD instructional support for staff and materials. This is specific to elementary. This was a sort of a one-time item for this year as we saw the impacts, especially with Ukraine and Russia and that pocket of population of a lot of newcomer students from those areas that had specific needs and high demand for services. We've been able to satisfy many of those and invest in this year. And so we're not anticipating the need or the ability to continue to do that going forward. It's a lot of information. I'm going to check and make sure we have a few questions here, and we do have one in person as well. So while I review the chat, please go ahead and ask the question.
Great. So I was just checking the elementary intervention specialists, those 11 positions. You mentioned that they're going to be coming out of general fund, or those positions are completely cut, or where's the funding for those, or what's happening with those positions?
Those positions are the funding is going to be taken out of LCAP. So they will be a reduction in force for that specific position.
So those 11 positions will go away?
Yeah.
Okay. And the elementary curriculum specialists, you said that those 2 positions will go away at those elementary schools, and the new assistant principals, where will their salary be coming out of? What budget?
Supplemental, the same, the LCAP budget.
Okay. And what is the difference between the curriculum specialist and, and I assume assistant principals are paid more than curriculum specialists? What would be the difference in their?
That's correct. I don't have a dollar amount on off the top of my head.
Is it a budget item that you're going to come to?
It's in the next slide. So this slide would say a reduction of 2 FTE of curriculum specialists is 278,000. The next slide identifies the 2 assistant principals as 262,000.
Okay. And so how will the work of those elementary intervention specialists, who will be doing that work if those 11 positions are cut?
The curriculum specialists at those 2 schools be absorbed by the principal and assistant principal.
And the intervention specialists at each of those elementary schools, the 11 intervention specialists?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I might have misheard you. You asked it separately from the assistant principals, the intervention specialists. Is that correct? Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, the 11 intervention specialists at the elementary school that are being cut, who will be doing the work that those people are doing right now?
Great question,
Robin. I think you'll be able to answer that when you get to the next slide.
Yeah, the next slide is going to detail that with the increase in our behavior interventionists, as well as our elementary wellness and behavior specialists. So I could answer that when we get to the next slide, if that's okay. Was there any other questions on the current slide? Okay, thank you. I'm going to just make sure we address the chat. So the vacancy with the intervention specialists, I believe, is currently at Roosevelt Elementary.
It's correct.
As I'm going to read this question out loud. For those folks who will be taking on these additional duties that the labor is being cut, what additional compensation are they receiving, or are you just adding work load without compensation? I'm going to hold on that question until I've been able to go through the next slide. And then there's some questions already about next slide, it looks like. So I'm gonna move to the next slide. So again, this slide is just looking at reductions of what's in the plan for this year, and where we believe we can reduce for next year's plan. That adjustment would be to the tune of $1.8 million. Next slide identifies, again, that we need to reduce by 500,000. We've identified 1.8 in reductions that can be made. That means we have 1.3, approximately 1.3 million that we're looking to reallocate to address some of the questions we're getting in the chat about, well, how will these duties or services be redistributed? As said, the elementary assistant principals, this is looking at Miller and Jefferson, to replace the 2 curriculum specialists, replace them with an assistant principal. There's a few more duties or abilities of an assistant principal, including evaluation of teachers, and being able to be an admin designee in certain meetings. And that'll support those 2 sites with large populations, as well as formal discipline for at the school site. When it comes to our intervention specialists, the next 2 items, elementary wellness and behavior specialists. These are 3 FTE that'll be more centrally located positions to support all 11 schools across the district. We've had significant success this year with doing that type of work with our secondary schools. If you recall, last year we eliminated positions at the secondary of the intervention specialists, as well as our community day school, and reestablished a new program identified as the SOAR program to support community day school students, as well as wellness and behavior specialists to support schools with behaviors and interventions in attendance. We look to do the same for our elementary schools with 3 FTE. Obviously, our intervention specialists would be welcome to apply. Those are positions that they would be or should be interested in. The next item is elementary behavior interventionists. These are 7 positions that we are adding to an existing 4 positions that are dedicated to elementary. These positions are essential to respond to a lot of concerns and issues at elementary school sites around significant behaviors for students. We've seen an uptick coming out of distance learning, as well as students that have experienced trauma, that are either new to the country or experienced that elsewhere. Also have students who may be under-identified or not yet identified for special ed services that also need support in this arena. Currently, our existing 4 are dedicated to special ed. What we intend to do by adding 7 additional positions is to establish the ability for these behavior interventionalists to work not only with special ed, but with general education students, and to dedicate staff to each site, which is an important measure for us. So we feel like this service will better serve the needs of our students, as well as the needs of our teachers and administrative staff, as far as being proactive in addressing student behaviors as opposed to reacting after a behavior has occurred. So that is a reinvestment there. The last item is outdoor science school funding. This is really specifically a small amount of money to support schools who have struggled to provide this opportunity for their elementary students because they are either low socioeconomic school or their school population is very small. So we want to ensure that every school in Burbank has the opportunity to take their students for this program. And so we're ensuring that through these dollars. Those are the items that we hope to reinvest to the tune of about $1.3 million. I'm going to take a question or any concerns about this slide.
Robin, before you start with
go ahead.
questions, can I clarify just a couple things?
Yep.
The elementary wellness and behavior specialists, it's 3 FTE for 11 schools. Those were specifically flown in-house. We did not fly the positions to the general public, and that was done on purpose so that our current intervention specialists had first priority to obtain one of those jobs. Behavior interventionists, we do have a few of our current intervention specialists that would qualify, and we are encouraging them to apply. And if they are able to apply and get one of those jobs, they, because we have enough behavior interventionists to have one at each elementary site, they are likely to stay exactly where they are and serve the same school they have been.
Thank you. We have a question in person.
Yeah, just a comment. I'm just concerned being at the high school right now with our the behavior specialist. I forget what Mr. Uribe's title is. His he's able to come to us 1 day a week, which is amazing. But the other 4 days, a lot of the work that used to be done by his position has now fallen on other staff. And I just want the community to be aware of that, that work is now part of counselors' responsibilities and other school staff's responsibilities. And so my concern is as we are going to be losing a counseling position right now, I'm hoping to lobby to have that reinstated. I'm concerned that students will not be able to be served in the way that our parents and community has been hoping that their students can be served. And so that's a great concern. The high school counselor position that is being cut through LCAP was designated for our EL students. And so I'd like to speak to the fact that I think that should be a new expenditure or a reinstated expenditure for next year for Burbank High School specifically. Burbank High School has about 400 EL students that are being served by a counselor currently. And since that is one of the focuses of the LCAP supplemental grant is to be money allocated for our EL population, I really think our staff and our board and our community should look at trying to reinstate the counseling position that was cut from the budget last year back into LCAP, because that is the type of funding that it should go towards. It's to support our EL students. They need that support. As you can imagine, if you don't speak the English language well, for you to be able to understand how to navigate high school is going to take a lot longer in the communication than an English speaking student. So the amount of time for each student that it takes for them to understand, the different nuances of their education takes a lot longer. And so to have that position cut from LCAP is going to really not only affect our EL students, but it's going to affect the general population as well. And I know that when the sixth counselor was slated through LCAP funds many years ago, that was because parents found that that was one of their main priorities at the time, was that they wanted more counseling time for their students. So I know the actual position was not cut this year because of some nuances with the state. And so our counseling position could not be cut, but it is slated to be cut as I see it for next year. And so I'm very concerned. And so I'd like to have staff talk about budgeting for that position next year and looking how we can, rearrange some of the other items.
I appreciate the share of the concern and the background as well. A lot of people online may not be familiar with some of the reductions that occurred last year, and counselors was one of those that came out of LCAP last year and are being currently funded through general funds. Thank you for your advocacy for Burbank High and the students up there. The question in the chat, worried about announcements with layoffs of the Department of Education. That's a federal program. Specifically, just so you know, the facts of the LCAP are state funds. So changes federally wouldn't impact our LCAP and our supplemental funds that we receive for this plan. However, those could potentially impact Title I funds, Title II, Title III, special ed funding are some of the federal funds that we receive. So we'll wait and see, but as far as our discussion tonight is not in jeopardy based off of any changes made federally. I want to take a moment. I believe we're caught up with questions or comments in the chat. But if there's an outstanding question that hasn't been asked or answered through the chat, I'll be happy to you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask that question. Or if there's a question you do want to unmute to ask, now would be the appropriate time. Okay. I'm going to come back to the question that was just asked. What I do want to do is go through the next couple slides. This is an appendix. It's available on our website, but this is a breakdown of all of our current plan expenditures, showing our budgeted amount, where we were at first interim and second interim. If you're joining us tonight but haven't been to previous meetings, you may be unaware of all of the action items that are funded through LCAP. So these slides indicate all of the different services that we provide through this funding source. Again, these monies are generated by free reduced meal students, students experiencing homelessness, students that are in foster programs, or English learners. And so it is a requirement of this plan that we spend these funds to increase and improve services for those populations. And that's what we try to do through all of our action items here, as well as support the LCAP goals and 8 state priorities set by the state. Please do go ahead and reference these on our website, or you can reach out to us if you have any questions about any of these specific items. But again, the bulk of tonight was really to discuss our intentions for next year, get feedback on what we're proposing for our budget, and know that many of those items that are in that appendix will continue to be provided. We do have another in-person comment question.
So for the continuation of funding, I just want to speak to a couple things that you shared on those slides. The first one is the funding for the Family Service Agency of Burbank to provide counseling. It says that it is there for our English learners, EL, foster youth, and low income. I'd be interested to find out if you can please provide the data, how many of the students that are being seen are in these programs. Just anecdotally, as a counselor at Burbank High School, I see that many of these students in these programs are either not being served or are being served through other sources, because maybe they have an IEP or different sources. So if you can provide that data, that would be very helpful, because I don't think right now many of our English learners, or a great percentage of our English learners, are able to access the FSA counseling services. So, but I'd love to be proven wrong on that. So if you have that data, that would be helpful.
Thank you.
The other question I had is, at Monterey High School for Goal 2, we're funding again 4 teachers at Monterey High School out of LCAP. And again, it is supposed to be for low-income foster youth EL. I'd be interested to understand what percentage of the population. I think Monterey has about 120 students. So what percentage of their students are EL, foster youth, and low income? Again, just because I'm at Burbank High School, I know that it's difficult for our EL 1s and 2s to attend Monterey. I think some of our EL 3s and 4s are there, but I'd be interested to find out what percentage of that approximately 120 students are being served. Because I feel like the 4 teachers, I think Monterey has 11 teachers, or maybe somebody can correct me, but that would be almost 50%. And I don't think 50% of their student body are in this category. So I think, just to be straightforward, I don't think we should say that they're serving low-income foster youth and English learners in that category. So if we can get some more information on that, that'd be helpful. And then I think I had one more question, and I think it was the same kind of question for our dual immersion program at the elementary school. Trying to find out how many of those students that are in the dual immersion program at the elementary school are in fact EL, foster youth, or low income, versus how many are just there to obviously have that experience. Because again, the percentage would be very important to find out if the percentage that we're spending on it is equitable for our EL learners. Again, trying to find the resources to really serve our EL students, and not just putting a category in there, because it helps us fund programs that are important, but really our EL population is supposed to be funded or supported through this fund. So if we want to fund these programs, great, let's do it through the general budget, but not say it's LCAP funds when it's really not serving our EL population. And I think our foster youth, that number is very low for the district. And then the socioeconomic, you can probably help me understand too, what percentages at each school meet that. But I think just for transparency, I think it would be really helpful to have those numbers and to make sure that we're really allocating funds for our EL population if we're saying that's what it's supposed to be for. So thank you.
Great question. Great comment for us, and for us to look into, to continue to monitor these programs. A lot of the questions and concerns that were just asked are reasons why some of these became part of LCAP funding. Traditionally, Monterey High School has had a pretty significant or majority population that meets one of those criteria, either free, reduced, or other. The other one, I believe in the slide, it says up to 39% for our dual immersion. Traditionally, it's been about 39%, but I think it's, again, paramount for us to, because we are in a budget crunch, to make sure that what traditionally has been those populations is still the same. There looks like there's some chat about funding and some of the other concerns, either with federal or adjustments there. But again, I want to take an opportunity, anyone who has a question about any of the information we've shared tonight in our LCAP plan, I would love to take those questions, or you're welcome to unmute to ask. Just anecdotally, or just more information for you all, our LCAP will be presented and has been presented to our DLAC, which is our parent advisory committee for English learners. We'll continue to do that. I believe we still have an opportunity to meet with them and get feedback on our plan. We also take our plan to our local SELPA for them to review our budget and how we intend to use these resources. And if you're not familiar with our local SELPA, it's our regional group of school districts that support our special ed populations and programs. And we will still receive community feedback from both our administrators, our union groups. We've done a lot of work just in the last month or two in getting communication and feedback from our bargaining units, both CSEA as well as BTA. We'll continue that process and look forward to any feedback that our parents and community have. Lastly, I want to share, I'm excited about this, is an opportunity to go to our high schools and meet with our ASBs at both of our 2 comprehensive high schools to share what our plan looks like and get feedback directly from our students through our student representatives. So looking forward to that opportunity. And we will continue this process into June when we will get our final approval from our school board. So with that, that's the end of tonight's meeting. We do not have a 6th or any currently scheduled LCAP meetings until we're able to take this to the board. But if we do determine another opportunity for feedback needs to be scheduled, we will make sure we blast that out for everyone to be able to participate. Okay, thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you all have a safe evening. And again, you're welcome to reach out to myself or any of the administrators from the district that were on tonight's call. Thank you. The